Okay, welcome everybody to ACTE's Innovative Strategies for Virtual Learning to Engage Students. My name is Linda Romano, and I am the Vice President of the Health Science Division. And I'm very excited that you are all here and eager to introduce our panel guests who will be providing some innovative strategies that they have presented. ACTE has been working to identify innovation for career and technical education, including activities that will improve the conditions for student learning, for teacher practice, and other facets of the CTE experience. As you see up on the screen, this is a webinar series, so there are more to follow through an entire year. So get your tool belts ready, because you will be learning with each webinar some tools and also sharing out. The whole goal of this webinar is to provide an interactive forum for you guys. We want to hear from you. There'll be a question and answer session. Sharing out is a mandatory requirement. We want to hear from you. So we hope that you will begin with a quick poll after I do the introductions and participate in the chat, and then during our question and answer session. So let's get rolling, and I will, without further ado, introduce our guests. So as I said, I'm Linda Romano, and I'm the Vice President of the Health Science Division, and I'm a health science educator in the Newburgh City School District, located in Newburgh, New York. We have with us Michelle Gallus. She is from the Nebraska Family and Consumer Sciences. She is a 9-year FACS teacher from Nebraska. She has a bachelor's degree in family and consumer science education, a master's degree in curriculum and instructional leadership, and endorsed in health sciences. Michelle has over 10 college observation students and 3 student teachers. Michelle will share tips and tricks for incorporating Jamboard into family and consumer science classroom. Jamboard highlights will include 7th and 8th grade FCS, culinary arts, and freshman health. We also have with us Jim Miklig. He is a college, career, and experiential learning coordinator for the Muskego, Norway School District. He has a bachelor's in technology education, a master's in administrative leadership in workforce development, and in educational administration with an emphasis on curriculum development. Jim oversees an experiential learning for the Muskego, Norway School through its Connect Academy. Jim believes that the strong partnership, both locally and nationally, are the key to students' future success. It is with stronger partnerships that partnerships that students are able to develop their professional portfolio by gaining real-world experience. Jim's work and success is founded in having a strong vision and open and honest communication with business partners, students, parents, and community members. And certainly, last but not least, we have Allison Rottenberry. She was born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. She attended East Carolina University and graduated with a degree in family and consumer science education. She currently teaches high school foods and nutrition 1 and 2, and she has been teaching at the school for 5 years. She is an advisor to FCCLA and has a passion for FCCLA that was instilled in her through high school, and she enjoys spending time in the kitchen and outdoors with her family and husband. So we welcome all of our panelists, and we welcome all of you. So let's get started. While Michelle is getting her presentation ready, I have a poll question for you. So if you would get your fingers ready on your keyboards, and please let us know, what is your biggest challenge in virtual teaching? What are you facing right now? What is your biggest headache? Let those fingers get a typing. Just type it in the chat. I'm going to add mine. Mine is hybrid learning. I'm in the midst of all of that, and that's giving me a big headache. So I'm hoping that some of you have the remedy for that one. I see we have not being able to see students' body language. Yes. Connecting to the students in the classroom and online. Yes, Michelle, that is my big, I always feel someone's getting neglected somewhere. Especially the teacher too, because teachers going crazy as well. Getting time with the students, student engagement. One thing I've done for student engagement is mindful practices, and that's trying to get the students to breathe a little bit before they come into that classroom, because just to get their mind set, and those online. When I say classroom, we all know we mean virtual and in person. Michelle, are you ready to go? Keep those chats coming, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share if you're ready. Okay, so like Linda said, I am a family consumer science teacher in Nebraska, and I'm just kind of a quick little crash course over Google Jamboard and kind of how to use it and how I incorporated it into our classrooms and kind of what I've done. So we are actually 100% in person. We have been since the start of the year, and completely blessed that we are. However, we do have to do hybrid because anytime somebody's out for COVID or an extended quarantine. So that's kind of where the whole Jamboard started. And I do think this presentation is shared later on for resources. So contact information, if you have questions, reach out. I'd be glad to help. So kind of just jumping into it is, what is Jamboard? So if you haven't used Jamboard, Jamboard kind of became, I don't know, a buzzword, a trend. This fall, so Jamboard is an app on Google. It's kind of an interactive whiteboard. I think that's how Google technically classifies it. You can do quite a bit on it. You can do multiple slides, you can draw, you can add sticky notes, you can do pictures, you can do symbols, there's a laser pointer. So there's some stuff that you can see on the side with it. The nice thing is you can use it in a web browser, which is really nice if you're creating the Jamboard. But of course, because it's Google, it's also an app. At our school, we are one-to-one with iPads, which is really nice. So if you are one-to-one, this is really handy, and the app works better on an iPad than web browser. Just things that they can do. Our students are lucky enough to have like the Apple pencils. So when it comes to like drawing, that connects really well to it. So the kind of what Jamboard is. So Jamboard tips and tricks. Jamboard, I think, allows you like 13 or 14 slides. There's a spot at the top where you can expand the frame and you can add slides into it. So you can add quite a few. Obviously, I think if you were probably doing anything more than 10, you maybe would just create a different assignment. So kind of some tips and tricks and things that you can do with it. You can actually create your own background. So Jamboard has a function. When you first get to Jamboard and you get to the basic part, it looks like, as it loads all the jams, it looks like this. And it always naturally brings you to owned by anybody. And you can change the view and how you want to see it. If you create a lot of Jamboards, you can click to own by me, and then you can see all the jams that you own. So you can click on the one that you want to do, and you can open it up. So again, it has basic features to it where you can add slides, you can add themes, you can change the theme, you can slide through. So sometime this fall, Jamboard updated, which was really nice, and it gave you different backgrounds, and it has a nice little part where you can add in your own image. This is super handy if you are doing a lesson where students have to label, because otherwise, if they're all working on it at the same time and they click on a picture, they all start moving up. So the nice part is you can create it. If you are a Canva lover, if you like to use Canva, I put on here the actual dimensions so you can create it perfectly for your Jamboard. You can use symbols, you can use emojis, you can add it for classroom voting. You can add lots of themes. And the nice part about Google is it automatically connects into your learning management system. We use Canvas for our learning management system. And it's really nice on the iPads because they can just save it as a PDF, and then they can just drop it straight into Canvas. And I'm sure if you're a Google Classroom, you can do it easily as well. So creating a Jamboard. So if you wanted to create a Jamboard for your class, say you were doing something on nutrition. So you could you want to set a background. So say you wanted to do something with nutrition. We'll look up apples. So you can click into Google search and you could click on it and you can hit set frame as a background. And your apple automatically pops up. So this is your background theme, which is really handy if you don't want anybody to move anything and you want it to set perfectly. From there, you can write. Kids can draw on it. They can erase it. They can point. You could add a sticky note. Is an apple a carb? And you can color the difference. You can move it around, you could add it, then your students can go in and add things to it. You can add shapes, they can also add pictures, you could add a text box. There's just a lot of possibilities that you can do with it. I'm going to kind of show you a little bit, and that's a simple. If you don't like it, you can just hit clear frame and you can start all over. So I attached a slide that has a lot of different Jamboards that I have done, and I'm gonna just show you a few to kind of give you an idea of possibilities that you can do. So if you click on the arrow that says owned by me, this brings you back to any Jamboard that you have created. Few examples. So for freshman health, I created one for them when we were doing carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And I created this when we were in the heart of our COVID surge and we had a lot of kids gone. So an easy one for this is I gave them the options of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, gave them instructions, and then they were to click on the pictures and they dragged them into the order where they fit. This was just kind of a nice way to do something different than a plain worksheet. Like I said, it was the heart of COVID. Not a lot of sharing utensils. And so this worked out really well. A few other examples to kind of show you just something a little bit different. I teach freshman health, and freshman health, we did body systems, and body systems is a lot of content. It's a lot of memorizing and words. So an example of this is instead of just doing a typical worksheet, I just created it into a Jamboard. And I use sticky notes for the words. And so then the students using their iPad could go in and they could type them. Some of them just added a sticky note. Some of them wrote them. So this one looks like a worksheet. It just was a Jamboard worksheet. So sometimes I do it interactive. Sometimes I just create it for them. And then when they were done, they just hit the share. It turned it into a PDF and they dropped it into Canvas. The last one I'm going to show you is from culinary. And like I said, on my presentation, there's some other examples that I've done. I've created a few more since then. So if you have questions, I'd be glad to help you. This one, for example, in culinary, we were learning about meats and how to cut them. And so I gave them step-by-step instructions on the side of what to do. And I gave them a link that they needed to watch. So they were going to watch a clip. And then on the next slide, they were going to create their own Jamboard of how to cut a steak properly. And they were going to give information of how to do it. The nice thing on the app is that when they draw with their pencil, there is a little spot that pops up that shows it. Are you trying to draw this? So if you're a really bad artist, it kind of guesses what you're drawing and it turns it into a better looking steak, which is kind of fun if you're doing something where they have to add graphics to it. So kind of a crash course. Kind of a crash course with it. So if you have questions, I ask away. There's a lot that you can do with Jamboard. It works great for classroom discussion. It is nice if you want to vote on something. Linda. Yes, so all students can work on the Jamboard at one time. If you're doing it that way, you just have to give them all editing privileges. So like if you're going to put it in, so like for example, when I do the Jamboard, I put it into Canvas. If I'm doing it as an assignment, they have to automatically make a copy, kind of like if you were going to share any type of Google Doc or Google Slide. If you want them to all work on it at the same time, like I've done it for like bell ringers where they have to discuss, or like an exit ticket, you just have to make sure they all have editing privileges, which sometimes gets a little wild if you have a big class and you have lots of sticky notes flying around. If you're a very type A person, sometimes that can be a little bit too much, but it's kind of fun for brainstorming to kind of see if they can see what other people are putting. Does it interfere with another student's work? That's the only thing. Kind of like anything with Google, they have to pay attention and to be careful. My student teacher did one with housing where she actually went ahead and each slide, she went ahead and put the student's name on it. So they could just go through and look for the slide. Otherwise, yes, they do just have to be careful that they click a new one and they don't exit out of somebody else's. So can students move each other's notes? Yes. If everybody has editing privileges, everybody can move each other. So the only time I may let everybody edit the same Jamboard is if we're doing like a class discussion or it's a bell ringer or an exit. If it's an assignment, I make them have a forced copy. Any other questions? It's kind of a fast, but just to kind of show you, I guess, how I've used Jamboard.
I think it's wonderful. I've only used it for the sticky note. That's why I was kind of curious. I love the idea of, the different categories and having the students, put stuff in the background. And being a health science teacher, I could see a big use for this in my classroom. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think it is wonderful. And again, if anyone has any questions, you can type them in the chat and we can give them to Michelle. And maybe during the question and answer session, you can also voice those questions. All right, we thank you again, Michelle. And now we have James Michlig, I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrong, Michlig. And are you ready to share?
Okay. Yep, I'm ready. Thank you for having me here. So I oversee our Connect Academy, which is our experiential learning for the Muskego Norway School District. So I support our CTE staff and our students and families and how do we get them into the next steps along their career path, as well as bringing business partners into the schools to support our classrooms and help our students understand potential career opportunities. When COVID hit last March, one of the biggest struggles that I saw is that our students in the state of Wisconsin could still go to work even though we weren't face-to-face with our students. Our business partners at that time wanted to continue to work with our students, wanted to keep their businesses open, but they didn't necessarily want any extra people into their facilities or buildings. For example, me. They liked the relationships and the things that we're doing, but they didn't want to bring in anyone that did not need to be there. So I needed to find a way on how we could track our students' work experience, how we could register our students, how to create the communication piece for our employers from a digital and virtual world. And the same point, also, how can we use this data and information to help guide our practices through CTE, through the courses, into our students' professional portfolios and next steps in their career. So what we did is we created a dashboard that could streamline our registration process. The first thing we do is we have this tab for student registrations. That takes me to this page. When our students sign up for our internship program, a link is created off of our Infinite Campus system. So as you can see, I have a number of students to meet is listed here as 148, number of students paperwork processed. So throughout the course of the year, we have had 148 students that at some point in time said they were going to be involved in a work experience program. Jobs have fallen through, placements have not come through, students may have changed in interest. So I have not processed a full 148. I processed 112 year to date. So we have 112 students that are in a work-based learning experience. When a student signs up and I go to have the meetings with them, I will then start with this link to find out where they're working in their place of employment. Once that is done, a survey is then sent to the student, the employer, and the parent, talking about the expectations and the guidelines of the program and how the program is gonna go through the course of the year and or semester. When the student completes their survey, the employer and the parent will get theirs. When all three are completed, a student will get a survey at that time saying, do you need to meet with Mr. Michlig at this time, or do you understand next steps of the program? Once they complete that survey, they don't need to meet with me. I just get an email saying that the completion process is done. Or if they need to meet with me, it says, please schedule a time and meeting, and I'll go to the Google Calendar and register a meeting with the student at that time. But once that survey is completed, our students are then automatically entered into our weekly time tracking surveys to where they can record their hours worked for the previous week. They get that survey every Monday. They get a reminder on Wednesday, and then it times out on Friday. As we talk about technology and innovation, this has really streamlined our process to record our students' hours and keep track of what they're doing on a weekly basis. But then also, that reminder feature is there to automatically be there for the students. And now the accountability piece comes in that they know it times out on Friday. There's, oh, Mr. Mickelig, I forgot. Like, you had a whole week to get it done with a reminder in there. And then so once it times out, we cannot use those hours for the week. So they're gonna have to make them up somewhere else. After the registration is done, we'll go to a registration status. So again, how do I keep track of our employers and our students and when I can't have the face-to-face meetings? Dashboards are created from our students, and when we gather this information, this is all our students right now, so it's a lot of information. I can drill this down to one specific student as needed. I'll do that real quick. So I'm just going to pick a student here. So once this is done, I can see right away, is the student a youth apprenticeship student, what career cluster they're in, and what pathway they're working. I get the information back stating their parents' information, email, phone number, contact information, and then where their work location is with their employer as well. So this is a quick, easy access for me. So if I have a situation I need to follow up with the student, that I can grab the parent, the employer, or the student's contact information right away. Also, through the registration process, you see this top bar, these bars up here. Through the process, once I complete and start the survey process, the student, the parent, and the employers will say 0 until they complete theirs. So if a student were to come up to me and say, Mr. Mickelig, I'm not getting the weekly time tracking surveys. I thought they were coming every Monday. I can drill in here right away and say, I see that you started your form and your parents have completed theirs, but your employer has not done theirs. Please follow up with them to complete that registration process so I make sure we're all on the same page. So this was a very efficient way. And even after COVID, we're going to continue to do our registration process this way because it's really streamlined it for not only the school, the students, and the parents, but our business partners. A lot of business partners I've worked with year and year over the years, and they understand what they need to do. So they don't want to schedule a meeting with me in their busy days when they don't have to. Like, Jim, just give me the work. We'll do what we have to do. We've been working with you the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So I know this is something that evolved because of COVID, and we're going to continue to use it after COVID. As we continue to kind of look at some of the different things we do, so now our students are evaluated every quarter. So how do we partake in the evaluation process? So now we have a dashboard to evaluate our students at the end of each quarter. Through this system now, we have all the employer's information, and we set up usually about a month and a half in advance towards the end of the quarter. The quarter evaluations get emailed out to the employer and the student. The students do a self-evaluation and the employers do an evaluation of the student. When they are done, the student will get a copy of the employers. The employer gets a copy of the students, and then both copies get kicked back to my desk in the dashboard that I'm going to show you right here. So now, as we start looking at how do we innovate and how these processes kind of come out because of COVID, we're also starting to find data that we can start to track how our CTE is supporting our students along their professional growth and preparing them for next steps in their career path. So we have a general 17 employability or 17 categories that students are related on for employability skills. And just some of those standard skills are as it's uploading here: ability to accept criticism, ability to learn from constructive criticism, attendance, punctuality, appearance, and things like that. All the soft skills that go into what is needed of a good employee for the workforce. So we can start to see from when we've implemented this, we've had 582 evaluations go out to our employers. So we started this fourth quarter last year, continued through summer, quarter 1, quarter 2. So our students that started this year have already had 2 evaluations. Our students that started in summer and continued through this year have now had 3 evaluations. So you see how that number adds up pretty quick because it's just my all-time data. But now I can see out of all of those, our students are rating a 4.05 on employability skills on a scale of 5. But then now we can start to see and drill down a couple different things. We can start to look at this data over time in the quarters. Are we rating higher in Q1 versus Q2? Are we stronger in Q3, Q4? Are we improving as the year goes on? Or are we getting worse as the year goes on? And truthfully, I've seen that happen sometimes because seniority starts to click in, next steps in their career path. They're going to go to the university or 2-year college or apprenticeship. So their current work experience has now become less relevant to them. So maybe their work skills have dropped or sagged a little bit. And I've seen that happen. But now we can start using this data to look at, okay, one of the areas I'll scroll down to here. So our top area that we rate, and I'm very proud of this from our school, is attitude towards coworker rates is our number one of all time. So how our students interact with other individuals is one of the areas that's rated the highest. One of the lowest is rated is quantity of work. So as we start looking at this data and we start looking at our CTE department, how can we start using this data to better prepare our students in our CTE classrooms to increase quantity of work? So this becomes a higher rated area and helps prepare our students for the next steps in their career path. The next thing that we start to look at here with our dashboards is our business partner relationship. So I have a student related to individual business partners that we're working with any given year. But like I said, we want to continue the relationships over the course of time. So how do we continue to track and use that? And so what we do now is we created this dashboard where all our business partners are housed in contacts. So we have 212 partners. So that's unique business partners. So Impro is one of our strongest partners in our backyard. We have that would be counted as one. At Impro, because they're a large company, we probably have about 7 or 8 different contacts at that business. So that's the number of 345 different contacts. So now we have different business partners that we can lean on for any of our 6 levels of experience, whether that's going to be a career fair, a discussion panel, mentorship, job shadowing, or a work-based experience. So this is now housing our information for our business partners that when we need to make those correlations or that connection to the business world, we can easily find that information. And we just sit here and we can filter down as needed what the organization, the last name, the business partners are, and the street addresses, as well as send out any update information as we move forward. And then the last piece I wanted to show you today was also an activity that we do, again, trying to make real world connections to our students before they leave high school, is we've done a mock, we call it a mock interview activity. So in the past, students would be partnered with a business partner. They would have to cold call them, email them, whatever their preferred method of communication was, and then go through the actual interview process. And then we'd have a reflection piece and start talking about areas they need to improve. So this year, instead of canceling these experiences, we created a survey to work through our dashboard here that we use, and then students did these mock interviews virtually. So now our business partners were sent a link, and when they scheduled a meeting with the student, they would click on the link and open it up, and then they would run the student through their interview process. So the students get used to the variations and different interviews that are out there, but then also how can we start to use this data? It wasn't a very long survey because we knew our business partners were overwhelmed and taxed with all the other things going on. So we didn't want to give them too much to answer to, but we also wanted to have some feedback for our students and how they can get better. So we just started to look at what are the key things on a interview that our students need to be better at. So we looked at alertness, appearance, attitude towards the job, attitude towards previous jobs, and how that might reflect. And then we just came back to, did the student provide a resume? Did they supply a cover letter? Would they hire the student? Might they hire the student? And then would they not hire the student? So then we can start to have those conversations with our students again, not only preparing them to get the grades in the coursework, but how do we prepare them for next steps along their career path? So I think we have done a lot of strong things that is not only we're going to use moving forward in the future, but it's going to help guide our work as a CTE department and how we can embed some of those real world skills into our classrooms and our curriculum. I know I kind of talk fast and I threw a lot of information out there. If you have questions, I'm always here and I love to talk about different things that we can do. Linda, I'm just looking at the question chat now, see if there's anything in there.
Yeah, there is. First of all, thank you so much. This is wonderful, and you have a lot of positive comments. Everyone feels a great collection of data. It very streamlined. Long time coming. A lot of the comments with work-based learning. One of the barriers to schools in implementing work-based learning courses is the need for a system to coordinate and organize everything. Is this created in the quadrilatex? That's the question from Chris.
Qualtrics, yes. So we use the Qualtrics system, and I will say, um, I use it differently than anyone else uses it. It is such a powerful tool. Most of the rest of my team district-wide uses it for very generic surveys. We have really pushed the boundaries on what we can do with Qualtrics. So if your district does have Qualtrics, this is all done through the system. I did talk to my IT person that's kind of helped us map some of this stuff out to talk to our different systems. So if you do have Qualtrics, I think we can make a copy of it and share it with some of this stuff with you, so you can see how the mapping works and maybe implement some of this stuff for your system and program as well.
All right, and thank you, those of you that participated in the chat. That's what we really want to see. We want to get that chat rolling. Thank you again, Jim. Great information. And now we have the lovely Allison Rottenberry, who is ready to make us wiser, I believe. Is that the case?
Yes, that is right. So let me. All right. So Wiser is something that I had done sometime during beginning teacher training, and my husband loves to do research. He's a teacher as well. And he had came across this. I was talking about, I teach foods and nutrition, which is really note heavy. And I was trying to, brainstorm, how can I make fill in the blank notes, or how can I take notes and put it to virtual? And so he showed me this, and I was like, oh, I had seen this before, but I completely forgot. So it's called Wiser, and it's really great. So some of the things I like about it, it's interactive notes. Or worksheets. So it's kind of like the Jamboard, but maybe more, I guess, formal, or more, I don't know, it feels more like a worksheet than a Jamboard. It does have a self-grading option, which I was an overachiever at first and made them not really where they could be graded on their own. And then I took advantage of that feature. And most of the things I give now are completely self-graded, because it's a lot better that way. It does have a free and paid version, but the free version is it's pretty practical. It does give a good variety. There's only been a couple things where I've clicked it and it's like, oh, try your 7-day free trial. So there are some times where I've been like, well, but is it worth it? Nah, it'll be okay. User friendly, but I will say practice does make you better. I don't know that you'll be perfect, but it does. There are some like quirky little Google has me so used to not saving anything. There's been times where I've X'd out and didn't save. And so you will get better as you go. And then it's really easy to assign to students. It's linked through Google, but you can also, I just usually copy the link and send it to my students in their assignment on Canvas. So that does make it really user friendly. So the website is called wiser.me. And it's really simple to make an account. You do have tons of templates to choose from. I have noticed that over my time creating Wisers, I get more templates as I create more. So I'm not sure if that's I guess that could be a feature. But some of the examples that I've included, well, I'll go through this first. Sorry, I'm trying to move my little pictures out of the way. So you can create worksheets. It's really good. You can add, there's some people in the examples I'll show where they mainly just do YouTube videos and then open-ended questions, or I use it for a lot of filling the blank and multiple choice and matching and sorting, so that as we're going through information, they're having to take the information and actually do something with it instead of just sitting there and staring at a computer screen. it's easy to assign to students. I said it does self-grade. You can share, but also search for pretty much any keyword. There was a lot of CT options that came up. I called this Smarter Not Harder because you can upload an existing PDF. So say you have a perfectly good worksheet that's, you know, a good trusty hard copy, but you don't have the virtual one, you can scan it, take a PDF, put it in the worksheet, and then, you know, if it's fill in the blank, all you have to do is just add the little fill in the blank boxes, and you have a perfectly good worksheet that's now a digital copy. Great for differentiation. So there's a couple different features with that. One of them is you can record audio. So if you have a student who, you know, maybe has a restriction with typing, or they have maybe a language barrier, or they need, you know, directions in audio, there is a feature where you can record, and students can also record their answers. I did have a couple students that were too lazy to type, and then they would just use that feature. So you can use it for differentiation, but also I guess it has some other uses as well. So some different subject areas that I searched for examples of, just to kind of give you a, like the business teachers that or the business teacher that I searched, she had a different format for a lot of her stuff than this teacher, which is, I think, health science. So, maybe I put the wrong link there. Well, anyway, I'll just search it right here. So you can see there's a lot of matching, and it kind of gives you a preview. But if I wanted to use, I don't teach health science, but if I wanted to use this worksheet, I can add it to my account. So it'll just bring up a preview of the worksheet and what it looks like. I can see, you know, what my students would be expected to do. So there's fill in the blank, there's sorting. So with each of these, you know, and when I give one for the first time, I kind of go through the worksheet with the student and say, you know, if I thought this was this answer, I'm going to click that part, just so they understand how the different parts work. But if you do have a course that has a lot of pictures and graphics and filling in and vocab and just different, you know, than just, I don't know, answering and just regular taking notes, it is really, it's really great. So some of the ones that I've made, I do teach ServSafe, which is hard for adults to comprehend. So apparently it does not link people's accounts like I thought it did. So this is it's been a great way for me to teach ServSafe and do my notes for that, because it is really hard information, you know, even for adults, but especially for high schoolers. You know, I made this one for macronutrients. So this went directly with the PowerPoint. I made the PowerPoint first, and then I went back and made the Wiser. A lot of it is just copy and pasted from the PowerPoint. So these sections that are fill in the blank, they're literally filling in the blank from the PowerPoint. And there is a feature where you can do drop down boxes. You can give them word banks. You can do where it doesn't do anything. So there's lots of different features, even within the different types of questions. And so just figuring out from experience, you know, okay, well, my kids didn't like, or, you know, I did where they typed it at first, but this is the part where it grades itself. And so if they chose the wrong answer, it's not right. And they should have had the right answer because it's directly from the PowerPoint. So that was a feature that I was like, I like that better because it's going to grade it for me. So kind of just figuring out, you know, what works for you. There was an ag teacher that I found that they did a lot more like pictures and videos. And even stuff with like FFA. So it was a way to incorporate other clubs and CTSOs into the classroom. So let's see, I think this was her. Just different. And you can change like the colors, and there's lots of different templates and stuff like that. But it's just interesting too, just to search and get other ideas. So here, like she has her instructions they're in audio. So it says listen to instructions. You know, some people do, like I said, just videos, or maybe use it just for multiple choice and it's just a different form of a quiz, or maybe it's like a exit ticket type. But I've really found it helpful for notes. So as we're going through a PowerPoint, they can have this up as well. We are also a one-to-one, so our kids have Chromebooks. So we are hybrid right now. And it has been really nice to have my screen presented, and then the kids in class are sitting there with their device, and they can follow along, you know, with me. If they're at home on one device, it might be a little bit harder, but I always tell them, you know, if you know how you learn and you just need to pay attention, that's fine. Go back in and compare and fill in the notes later. But it is nice in person. And I honestly don't know that I'll ever do paper notes again, because they have a device at school. And so when we are in person, they don't have an excuse. And so they'll just do this, and then they can always have it with them and they can never lose it. So the one question, does it sync to Canvas? It does not. Well, if it does sync to Canvas, I have not figured that out. But I think it probably would sync to Google Classroom, because you can link your classes. I just typically have the assignment in Canvas and then put the link in the instructions, and then I'll grade on one screen, and then just type the grade into Canvas. So that, I mean, I guess it would be better if it was streamlined, but it's still nice to have it pretty much already graded. So I just read through, make sure, you know, if they type something, they spelled it wrong or whatever, just kind of double check their answers, and then I'll put the grades into Canvas. So.
That's wonderful, Allison. How long does it typically take to make one of those?
My first one that I ever made probably took the longest, just trying to figure it all out. But like I said, it does get easier as you make a couple. And so once I figured out kind of the layout that I like of, you know, multiple choice, fill in the blank. If I take a PowerPoint and create a new one, I mean, I would say it probably doesn't take more than, you know, 20 minutes for a decent length PowerPoint, because a lot of it's, okay, you know, on this slide, am I going to do a multiple choice question? Or, you know, maybe this slide teaches a lot of information, so I'll do fill in the blank. So it kind of, I guess, depends on what the subject is, or, you know, if it's just uploading pictures and putting fill in the blank boxes, that would, you know, take even less time, I'm sure. But
all right. Well, thank you so much for making us a bit wiser today. To have a wiser classroom. I know I'm going to check it out, because I teach human body, and you know, a lot of notes there. Yes. All right. So you've heard from our panelists. We want to hear from you at this point. What are you doing in your classroom? Is there anything that you want to share in the chat that you are doing in your classroom? A little strategy, something, throw in a name of a platform that you're using that you find that the kids are loving. It's kind of like when I'm teaching. Wake up, everyone. It's okay. If you are chat shy, I'm going to let you guys think about that one. So I'm going to ask some questions to our panelists. And the first question, and I'm going to ask one question, and each one of you think about it, and we'll give you guys a couple of seconds to respond so we get some different viewpoints. So I will start with Michelle, because she was our first presenter. And this question is for everyone. When you run into challenges through the online teaching, where do you turn for new strategies and tools, like to help your students succeed?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of, honestly, social media. I follow a lot of teachers on Twitter, and I follow a lot of teachers on Instagram. And I think that's where I have learned probably the most, especially this year. And finding things, and there's always webinars. I'm seeing some of the chat with Nearpod, which is a good one, Pear Deck. But yeah, I think just collaborating, and I think a lot of teachers do a really great job when they do have social media of sharing and kind of, I don't know, the new world of quick little how-tos. That's where I have found a lot of, and that's where I discovered Jamboard also.
Wonderful, thank you. And I do find people are a little bit more eager to share during these times than they were before. All right, Jim, same question. Where do you run to for your to help you through your challenges with online teaching?
I would say ACT has provided a wonderful resources to use that's kind of helped guide through this, collaborating with professionals that are on this Zoom call, for example, have become really huge for me. But then also I have a local consortium of people in my similar role that we try to meet at least once a quarter, if not more often, just to bounce ideas off each other. So my registration process isn't working. I'm not getting a response, or I have a PDF document that has specific verbiage that can't be altered because it's a state document. What are some other resources that I can streamline that? And I've been able to bounce ideas off them, and we've worked together to kind of, as a region, solve some of the gaps that we're having here in Wisconsin.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Allison? Who are you, your go-to? I believe you're muted, so
Yeah.
if you would, thank you.
I think, similar to Michelle, just a lot of social media, and my husband is a teacher. He's definitely more active on Twitter, and he also follows a lot of people. And, there's different things. We'll bounce ideas off of each other. And even though he's elementary and I'm high school, there's ways that, you can almost take things from elementary and they work in high school. So, just conversations, I think, with teachers. A lot of the family and consumer science teachers, especially foods and nutrition, are singletons in my county. And so it's nice to have a PLC with those teachers, and just what are you doing, what's working, what have you tried, did this fail, like, do your kids hate this? And so I think just the conversations with other teachers of and Facebook groups. There's a really great facts Facebook group that some days I'm like, whew, I might not have gotten that. I got a lot of ideas, so it might not be the exact assignment, but just getting ideas and conversations and just sharing that way.
Awesome. Awesome. Second question for you guys. You're not off the hook yet. How do you help create the structured environment for the students that receive in person and virtually? How do you structure your classroom? We'll start with Michelle again.
Well, being family consumer science, I am predominantly project-based and hands-on, and I teach multiple preps a day. So structured res kind of depends on the class. I try not to make every class throughout like one day all lecture based, because that's a lot. So structure wise, typically a lot of times I lecture at the beginning of the week, and then the rest of the week is project based or food labs or something like that. So when thankfully, because we have been in person, a lot of things have kind of just stayed the same. And I've incorporated things and had to use technology more. But on days when they are hybrid, or when we do have students at our home, for our district, we provide them Zoom links, and then they can Zoom in with us. So at least they can kind of be a part of it if we're doing a lecture. That way they don't miss out on it. And it also gives me a chance to check in with them and make sure that they're doing okay. So I kind of pick and choose. I typically lecture-wise teach once or twice a week. And then a lot of times we are working on more projects or doing labs.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Jim, what about you?
I'm a little unique that I don't have the students in a face-to-face environment. So structure is something that isn't in my day. And I would actually say prior to COVID, one of the biggest barriers we had is we have about 85% or more of our student population involved in extracurriculars. So I tried to find ways on how we can kind of deconstruct our school day to make sure our students could be involved in more opportunities while working around the sports. So the last couple of years, we don't just have early release from school like we've had in the past. We'll have late start to school, early release. And then now we've even flexed students' days where they might come to school for first, second, and third hour, leave the middle of the day, and then come back for 6 and 7. So I've actually, before this process, worked on how do we deconstruct the normal school day to provide more opportunities for all.
Wow, that sounds interesting. Very creative school district you have there, Jim. Allison, same question for you. Oh, Allison, don't forget your mic. I do that all the time.
Oh gosh, it's been a long day. Will you read the question again, please?
Sure, absolutely. How do you help create the structured environment for students that receive in-person as well as virtual?
So, high school, we only have 4 blocks where I teach, and so that creates, longer blocks. So I typically do a little bit of lecturing each day, or it might be a recap of the day before, a recap of what we've been talking about. And then, like Michelle said as well, because she's facts, there's a lot of projects. There are some days that the students at home will have more work because the kids in class are cooking. And so it is hard to balance, but typically on a regular day, I have kids on Google Meet, I have kids in my room, and we're all one happy family at the same time, thanks to technology. My virtual kids, I usually do some type of virtual cooking assignment. And of course they have to have, permission and all that good stuff at home, but they have a assignment that goes with it that they wouldn't have in class, but because I can't be there and because I want them to think through specific things, they have an assignment that helps them feel included, and they have to submit pictures and all of that. So just trying to figure out ways to keep them engaged at home and also still feel like even though we're cooking in class and they're not there, they're still part of what we're doing.
Yeah, being a hybrid teacher myself, and CNA is hands-on. It's really hard when they have to do a physical activity and they're at home and you're with some students in the classroom. Like I said, I always feel I'm leaving somebody out somewhere. All right, last question for our panelists, then I'm going to address some of these wonderful ideas I'm seeing pop up in the chat. And thank you so much. This is what we want. We want that interaction. So this one has to do with having expectations. Do you have the same expectations of your students in online learning environments as you did in person? Now, I know some of you are in person, tell us a little bit about those expectations, because I know that's one of the biggest challenges. Cameras on or cameras off? Mute, mics on, mics off. So let us know. So Michelle, if you would start.
I have different expectations for those that are online. And like I said, where we are not on, thankfully, not on an online, AB day or anything, being in person, it's a little bit different. Typically those students that we've had that have been out for an extended period of time, their deadlines for the most part, or due dates, have always been extended because it's technology and you're at home. And if you're at home, the rest of your family's probably at home and your dog is at home. And after March, having to be at, trying to work and have that that other side of it, it's hard. And they don't have somebody who maybe is constantly making sure they're doing things. So as far as my expectations have definitely been different. For the most part, like lecture time, when those have joined, we've kind of talked about Zoom things, Zoom rules, I do have them mute their mic unless they have a question. As far as video goes and whether they have it on or not, enough that I can see you and I know you're there, but for me doing hybrid, I'm teaching the rest of my class. So if I have 20 students that I'm teaching, they're unfortunately just on the iPads, staring at me. So enough to check in with them. And then obviously if I'm talking to them, I always have them just pop on their camera. So it's just easier to kind of communicate. But unless I've had to, when I did midterm, I had a student that was out and we had to do a test. And so that was a little bit different and a little bit structure wide. But otherwise, we have made the best of the situation, and it is what it is, really.
Exactly. It is what it is. And we all try our best. How about you, Jim? Tell us a little bit about the expectations.
Yeah, so definitely just mirroring the struggles are real, not being there face to face, and the accountability piece is something that's definitely there. But I would say I've actually increased my expectations of accountability through some of my research I'm doing. I read a book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, and they are pretty dead on with some of the things that we're going to see and come into society. And I think COVID's actually sped up some of the things where artificial intelligence is taking over certain aspects of the future career path. And it's no longer whether or not you're going to know a piece of information because it's there. We're in the digital information. It's can you find it and use that information? So I really try to, even though these are challenging times, hold our students to a higher expectation, because the reality is as they move into the world, they're going to be expected to know what's there and perform because the tools and resources are at their fingertips. And I would even say, because we've streamlined some of these processes, we can look through when the registration forms, the emails were opened, what they've completed on them, whether they closed them, they timed out on them. So when we get the my dog ate my email link come back to us, well, no, you opened it up on 2/9 at 3:26, you started 40% of it, and then you stopped. And so because we do have some of these tools at our disposal, we can then start holding students more accountable that no, you need to follow through on this process and do what's expected of you. We care about you and we want to see you succeed, but that's not always going to be what's going to happen in the real world. So I would say I've increased my accountability for our students.
Wonderful. Yeah, the struggle is real. I love the way you said that. It's true. Allison, tell us about your expectations for your hybrid environment.
I unmuted this time. I think it kind of depends on the situation, and it kind of depends on which phase we're in. So we've been from, all the different plans and hybrids and all the different bell schedules. So I think as far as student work goes, I think I've increased my expectations because, like Jim just said, there's such a timestamp for everything, and everything has a trace to it. And so students who are like, oh, I forgot this, or oh, I didn't turn this in, I'm like, well, I can see on the edit history of the Google Doc that you logged in and did it 7 minutes before you submitted it today. So that's what's the real reason. And so I think it's given them, and it's obvious when you copy and paste things and they think they're just brilliant with things like that. And so I think as far as student work goes, it's caused me to, have higher expectations because there is such a track record of everything. But, kind of like Michelle was saying with just the in-person and the virtual, I mean, our county's been so flexible with kids, they almost have no expectations for them. And so then as the classroom teacher, that wants to have the expectations, it makes that even harder because our district level has, set the bar so low for expectations that it's like almost impossible to expect, a certain standard. So I think during hybrid, it's easier to have higher expectations. When it's all virtual, it's definitely, you have to be more lenient because a lot of it is just so out of our control with them being at home.
Exactly. And I'll just put a little plug in for that social emotional learning. I teach in an inner city school where cameras, our expectation is to have the camera on, but we have a lot of students that have an environment that they don't want to be seen on camera. So we always have to be, as teachers, very sensitive to those issues of, the home environment, what's going on mentally. And, it's pretty scary knowing that these kids are in such rough environments and we can't see them. I know somebody wrote in the chat that loss of connection is really a tough one. I know for me. Oh, you're unable to require, Allison. All right, so I'm just going to look quickly through the chat. There's a lot of talk about Edpuzzles, Nearpod. I've never used Nearpod. I have used Edpuzzle, but I could probably use a refresher. So you guys that are putting stuff in the chat, I'm going to encourage you to get involved. And if you think of anything else you would want to share, including our panelists, we'd love to have you back again. You were wonderful. We would really love you to reach out. Our panelists' email information is here. So jot it down, take a screenshot, snapshot, whatever you need to do. And we really, really hope that you would share your ideas at the next webinar. And if we could put what the next one is, that little advertisement, Lauren, I'd love to put another plug out there. I plan to be there as well. So we want to make sure, Cooking with Canvas webinar. Yeah, I don't even know what Canvas is and I'd like to learn. Remember, in this unusual environment, innovation can be anything. It can be something from as simple as even a Google Doc that you do creatively. The Jamboard is awesome. I would love to hear more about that. I'd love to hear more from our panelists. I think it was wonderful, but I would love to hear from all of the members that are on board. So please reach out to your colleagues, get your information. Let's put that connect with the website's right there. Connect with Megan, and her email is right there. She is on. Megan, would you like to give a plug for anything before we?
I just want to thank our panelists and say our next innovation webinar is on March 4th on virtual fundraising through CTSO. So we hope everyone will join, and thank you so much to the panelists and attendees today.
Yes, thank
And
you.
thank you, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, panelists. Michelle, Jim, and Allison. Very, very wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us your time.